Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the A60 show. I'll be your host, A60. My name is Alvin Pierce. That's what I go by as well. But for those who don't know me, when you come to my show, I am A60 today. I have a special guest on the show. He is a varsity coach in the Plano area. I'm kind of conflicted because I got Plano Senior, Plano East, Plano West, and of course, Wiley. I got kids all over. But this is a good friend of mine, and I'll introduce you in a minute and let you know who he is. But before we get started, let's pay some bills. Give a special shout out to my Elite Learners family, Al Watson, Kamara Jackson. Thank you for always supporting me. My Queens Defenders family, Daga and Heather. Thank you for always supporting me. Um, my Toyota family, you know who you are. I want to also salute to JC1 Printing, my boy Uncle, who always taking good care of me with them good logos. Also with them fresh shirts that we make. And yes, we do have A60 apparel, and that is a line that's still out there. Be doing the chopping up A60 line that'll be out there. Go in there and get your purchases while you can. Shout out to the Spencer Squire Foundation. Thank you to Anna and Patrick for always supporting me as well. And of course, shout out to my Rebels family. As you know, we'll be back in the business this year to kick off our spring and summer tournament edition. Now we're going to get into an interview that I've been wanting to have for a long time. And I say a long time is because I actually wanted to sit down with one of the varsity coaches or anybody that would be willing to sit and talk with me, even though I could have reached out to anybody to get this interview. But this man is just ain't anybody. He's a good friend of mine. We've been friends for probably 15 plus years. Um, I remember when he was the coach at McKinney High before he even got the head coaching job over there at Plano. And I think that was the job he really wanted. But he can tell you that better. But anytime I needed any type of advice, any type of coaching lesson, this man lets me into his locker room. This man lets me into his practice where I know it's restricted for 100% of varsity coaches. And I just pick his brain, and he gives me the information that I need. And when I say this is a kid, I'm sorry, this is a man that you will want your son to play for, you definitely need to send them to Plano Senior. Uh, if my son was not at Wiley, I guarantee you he'll be at Plano Senior. So, we're still figuring out that too. don't go into details and all that. Everybody who want to figure that out, nothing is going on. So I don't want him to get in no trouble behind this. But like I said, this is a good brother, always opening his home, his arms. Um, Always been a great and genuine friend. And there's only a few coaches in Texas that I respect. You notice I said Texas. And he's definitely one at the top of the line. So without further ado, bring into the A60 show my brother, Mr. Dean Christian.
Hey, Al, how you doing, brother?
Hey, how are you, man?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. I have to admit, this is my first time doing anything like this, and I'm so excited that it's with you. I'm gonna get my cherry burst popped. I'd love for it to be with you, someone that I really admire, I care about. I've watched you with kids throughout the city for many, many years, and I love your passion. I love how you put them first, no matter what they bring you. You always put them first, and you find a way to meet them where they are, and always make them better. And that's a key thing for, especially at the age that you're getting them. Development is everything, and I love the way that you've been able to keep that first. It's a true testament to a man that cares about a young man enough to develop them instead of going for the wins. Because sometimes when you go for the wins all the time, then the development isn't there.
Right.
You shortchange the kids, and you don't ever do that. And I respect you for it. I'm not really a public guy. I don't. You'll never see me at an AAU event. You'll never see me seeking out anything, trying to do anything.
Mhm.
Uh, but to be with you today is an honor. And that's the only reason why I'm doing it, is because I hold you at a high esteem. And it's an honor for me to be here with you today.
Man, I appreciate that, my bro. So professional, always so professional. But I know when we get off this, it's going to sound totally different. But so professional, as always. You know what I'm saying? Um, Out of all the high schools, I got so many kids that go to so many different schools. Plano West, Plano East, Wiley. You was the first one to open up your doors and say, "Hey, let me show you what it's like on the high school level. Let me show you." And to sit in one of your practices, that actually did it for me right then and there. Like, you don't change from game to practice; it's the same. Like, you're the
Right.
same person. Like, you keep that energy the same because you know what you want, and the kids got a high expectation, so you know what you want from them. Um, to go back a little bit, where did this coaching come into play? Like, when did you wanted to get into coaching?
It was at an early age, Al, because coach, my dad was a coach.
Hmm.
So at an early age, I got to see the way my dad impacted lives of young men in the city that I grew up, which was Denver, Colorado. So, um, man, it was an emotional time for me at that point because, he didn't just coach my team or my brother's team all the time. He started way before we even got up to that point to where we could play for him, and he was coaching guys older than us. He coached guys in between us. Then he coached my son, my brother, and then he coached many teams after my brother. So the impact that he had in our community, which was East Denver, it was huge. It was enormous. Guys got to go to college because of him, and a guy named Saeed Abdul Rahman, which was they were co-head coaches at the time out of East Denver YMCA, and man, AAU at that time was everything. And I don't know if you remember, but at that time, each state only really had one qualifier to
Mm.
go to nationals. So it was really kind of different at that time because if your team happened to win, you had the option of picking up players off the other teams that you competed against in the state tournament.
Oh,
And so when we won, we would pick up kids throughout the city, throughout the state, that got to know my dad that way. And then if we lost, then of course they would want him to be an assistant, even if we weren't part of that age group,
right.
because of his basketball expertise. My dad was a retired military guy, just like me. I wanted to do everything that he did. I wanted to I wanted to be like my father, in all ways. I wanted to be in the military. I wanted to coach. um, I wanted to serve my country. I wanted to touch people's lives basketball wise, and that's what I did. His life was cut short at the age of 46. He died of melanoma cancer.
Wow.
Melanoma really uh, isn't a black or ethnic disease. It's actually a disease for lighter fared people. And my dad was the same complexion as you, but somehow he caught melanoma. There's a lot of different speculation on why. Some dyes in the socks that he was mandatorily having to wear while he was in the military. The heat combined with that dye in the socks and the boots that he was wearing. Anyway, so he got contracted this deadly disease, melanoma, died at the age of 46. So I pretty much from that moment on, um, wanted to carry that torch. You know what I mean? Of coaching and that was and still is my motivating factor in the business. Is I wanted to be like my dad. I know it may sound corny, but that
Now,
man, it's in me deep. That it's
yeah,
in me deep. And people that don't know me, they've never heard that story. In fact, that's the first time I've kind of admitted it publicly. But that's where the coaching piece comes from.
That's great. That's good, man. Um, Now you said you was in the military. I know. Let the people know what military you was in.
Well, I was in the Air Force for 22 years. I initially went to the Air Force Academy, which is in Colorado Springs, Colorado. I graduated as a second lieutenant. The way I got to go to the academy was a wild thing. I got recruited by the Air Force Academy. A guy named Reggie Minton,
Hmm.
who was at the time an assistant coach, longtime assistant coach. He was there as an assistant for 16, 17 years, then came back as the head coach for almost the same amount of time. We just, as a matter of fact, uh, acknowledged him and gave him a regiment weekend at the Air Force Academy in honor of his service there. That was a huge thing for me because he recruited me out of my living room and so because of his recruitment and the fact that my dad was a retired master sergeant, that's how I got my nomination. It's called a presidential nomination. And then because of the fact I had good grades, I went to all boys Catholic high school in Denver, and I was set up. I had the numbers academically. I had the game, and then I was allowed to go to the Air Force Academy. Played there. Um, really enjoyed my time there, and then because of that, it launched me into a career in the military. 22 years of service. Ended up retiring as a major, uh, and had the opportunity to go back to the academy and coach myself there.
That's
Uh, so so that's where I started my college coaching, was at the Air Force Academy. Spent the last 12, 13 years of my military service coaching at the Air Force Academy Prep School, and then retired. And that's when I came to SMU. That's what brought me to Texas, is
okay.
that I got a job with a guy named Jimmy Tubbs out of Kimball High School fame.
Hmm.
Um, who was a longtime assistant for Mike DeMint down at SMU. And he brought me on board, gave me a chance to be an assistant coach at the college level. So I was with him for 3 years at SMU. That's what brought my family here. Um, we got fired. That happens in college ball.
Right.
You know, that happens, bro. You know, you
Yeah.
get up at that level,
Yeah.
you're going to get fired, or you got to win big. And as you can see, SMU is on the highest stage right now, and their expectations,
Mm.
and rightfully so, are very, very high. So I learned a lot there. I learned a lot at SMU. Then had the opportunity to go to Dartmouth
Mm.
after that and work for a guy named Terry Dunn. Terry Dunn's twin brother was the head coach at Penn State. Terry was head coach at Dartmouth, and got to see the Ivy League, and a lot of things going on the East Coast, how they work that prep school action,
Mm.
and they're the originators of going to those prep schools and those 1 year stopgap places. They've been doing that for years to develop guys and give them a heads up before they come in as freshmen.
Mm.
Got to see the Princetons, the Yales, the Browns, those type of schools on the East Coast that you read about and you see on TV, and got to go in those historic gyms and on the East Coast, and that's where I really, really realized that I didn't know anything about basketball until I
Whoa.
got to the East Coast. Yeah,
What do
and
you mean? You done coached at Army. You done coached. You was at SMU. Now you on the East Coast, and
yeah,
what's
man.
the difference?
When you get up in there, it's a whole different grind. It's a whole different approach to the game. It's a whole different the desire of those kids to get out those streets, the expertise of the coaching at on the East Coast is at such a high level, and the no nonsense is what really transformed me as far as my basketball approach is at. On the East Coast, it's a no. That's where you're from. I mean, it's no nonsense. You if you make the mistake and walk onto a playground in New York City, and you're not serious about it, like if
Mhm.
you're out there playing around, you'll get some people upset.
Oh, definitely. Don't waste people time.
Yeah, you'll get some people upset. Whereas, Midwest, West Coast, You can find gyms, you can find outdoor courts all over the place where people are just playing around. They'll play around for hours. I mean,
Mhm.
they won't, the games aren't serious. You
Mhm.
can you can go right over here to some of these recs and guys will play around for hours. But you'll never ever see that on the East Coast.
No.
Like if you go to a outdoor court or if you go to a gym that might happen to be open and you can get in there, there's no playing around.
Mhm.
And that doubled me down on, I was already a no nonsense kind of guy because of my military, but it
Right.
doubled me down on, hey, I'm going to be direct and to the point. I love you enough to tell you the truth. Um, and that's just been, my coaching philosophy and how I approach things. Um, it isn't for everybody. Some people need the fluff. Some people need to be told what they want to hear. But you and I both know now with the NIL, it's gotten very, very, very serious
How do
at
you
all levels.
how do you feel about the NIL? Do you think it should be different tiers, or do you think these kids right now should be getting this type of money coming right out the bank? My personal opinion on the NIL: everybody's not on the same playing field. I think there's levels to it. There's your tier one, your tier two, your tier threes. Nobody should be getting me paid the same. And you got to be consistent with what you're doing to get this type of money, especially coming out of high school, going into college. Now, I'm not saying college players shouldn't get paid. I think you should always get paid. The players, that profession. We know if you play Division One, it's hard for you. You can't work, and you're only getting whatever they're giving you every month. You know what I'm saying? And that's still not enough, especially back in those times. How do you feel the NIL should have been done?
Well, as anything that happens, Al, I think the initial fallout is always um, going to be all over the place. It's all over the place right now. But I think it's the best thing that could have ever happened to the quality of basketball we're going to see.
Right.
And the reason why I say that is because um, there are no more project scholarships.
Mhm.
Like for years, if all you had to be was tall, you'd get a scholarship. Somebody would give you a scholarship and they would believe or they would say, oh, he's a project. We're going to develop him. We're going to give him 2 years. We're going to gray shirt. We're going to blah, 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 blah. And so, and so what was happening is that basketball was getting really, really watered down with guys that didn't really want to play. They had the metrics and the street agents and the coaches that were out there were finding these kids in the hallways and the streets, and they looked the part and they knew they could sell it, but the heart wasn't there. Like this kid wasn't going to put in the time or the effort to really become something that the game demands.
Right.
But now with NIL, all that is over. I mean, no one's going to waste any time on you if you really, really don't want to be there because there's not that much time to give. It used to be that you could wait on a kid, but now scholarships and NIL money are giving out in the summer of the junior year
Okay.
if you're a high school player.
Hmm.
Now, if you're not a high school player, you have to go JUCO, you have to go D2, D3, NAIA, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and then try to get signed out of there to the money level. So as you can see, every level now, including high school, like you said earlier in the podcast, you have to perform consistently at a high level. So no one can fake their way through it. No one can talk their way through it anymore. No one can. No one's going to call up a college coach anymore and say, "Hey, I got this 6'10. He's raw." Remember how many times you heard that?
Got
He's
that.
raw.
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah.
he can jump.
Need some
He can
work. Need some work.
exactly. You don't
Dribble.
you don't you don't hear that conversation anymore, Coach.
No. No,
No, all that's done. They won't even talk to you about something like that. Not the D1 guys.
crazy.
Yeah. So so now what that means to me and for me is now when I'm tomorrow morning when I'm in practice,
Mm,
I really can't. I have to go with that because when I ask you what your goals are, right, and you tell me you want to play Division 1 basketball or you want to go to the NBA, well, it's my job to explain to you exactly what that is.
okay.
And this is where, you know, so many different interpretations of of the communication piece at this point that you're giving them and I'm giving
Mm,
them get misinterpreted by the parents, the kids, you know, oh, coach is a bully, coach doesn't believe in my kid, um um coach is trying to um bring my kid down or
has
you know
his favorites.
exactly all that stuff when in fact Al, you know, you have to tell them the truth at an early age now, early age, because if they don't get it and they don't work on the things they need to work on, by the time that junior year hits, it comes so fast it's too late.
It's over.
It's over. It really is. It's over.
And
You're
I
not
don't
even.
people don't know that it's a process, coach. Like,
Yeah.
and when I say it's a process, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I tell my son he's a freshman now, about to be a sophomore. I said you can't make freshman mistakes now. You are going to be you're a sophomore. Your season's over.
You're
You are officially a
you're a
sophomore.
vet. You're a vet.
Yeah, you vet. They expect there's expectations.
Right.
These coaches have expectations, and you can't leave them with no options. Now, if you make them choose, they're going to go with the better option where they have the better winnings percentage. But if you don't, and you sit around the gym and you want to be with your homeboy on the Xbox, you're going to be home with your homeboy on the Xbox and not
Right.
playing. A lot of these kids think they deserve playing time because they have skill.
Right.
And I always say you need a lot more than skill. You need IQ.
You
How do
need
you?
toughness. You
What,
need
what's
a motor.
you need
You
motor?
need you need toughness. You need a motor, along with the IQ, along with the skill. Like, man, you and I have talked about kids who have skill. You can have skill, but that means you can do it one or two times. They want the guy that has skill and IQ and can do it for 40 minutes.
That's right.
There's a big difference between knowing something and believing something.
Mm, that's key.
Like you can know something. You like I can tell you something right there, right now, and then you know it. But if you don't believe it, coach, the information I gave you, it sits different. It hits you differently. If you believe me, you're going to do what I told you.
That's right.
You're going to act on what I said. You're going to make the necessary changes to um, become the player that you need to be. But a lot of these kids, um, and it's not their fault. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you why it's not their fault. People don't understand that we're dealing with a generation right now of kids. There's a 4-year window that I call COVID kids. So
Got you.
4 to 7 years ago, when COVID hit, these kids were in the fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh grade. These kids spent 2.5 years of their lives indoors, alone, on computers and phones, no communication, no competition, no reality. No, remember when you were a fifth and sixth grader, that's pretty much when you you developed your competitive nature.
It was a fire. You knew exactly what you wanted to do, and you were going to go get it. Yeah, you. I agree. Agreed. I didn't.
They missed all that.
Mm,
They missed the opportunity to develop their own energy for anything. And that's why these kids are so docile right now. Like they're docile. They're they're un they're unaffected affected by pretty much anything. Like it's not their fault. It's
no,
not their fault. They don't they don't know how to process things because they don't have their own experience with the feeling, with the emotion, with the with the opportunity, with the uh what do I do with when I get beat? What do I do when I win? What do I do if I'm not good enough? What do I do if I am good enough? And how do I stay ahead? They don't have anything to work with it on. Nothing.
but do you think they can get that back based on what's in the household from
Oh,
their
they're
parents?
getting it now. They're getting it now. Like I'm not saying this isn't a blanket statement. There were some parents that manufactured, like you manufactured that whole environment for your son without the help of little league football, little league baseball, little league track, little league this. Uh, Go outside and play. Without all that, you were able to manufacture it right in your own living room,
Mm,
right in his bedroom, with other things. Didn't I? I asked you to clean up your room. Here's why. You didn't do it. These are the ramifications. So life went on for a lot of different homes, but I'm talking about most of the kids. 60% of these kids grew up for 4 years. They didn't do anything wrong. They didn't do anything right. They didn't do anything to the left. They didn't do anything to the right. They
mhm,
didn't do anything too much. They didn't do anything too little. They were home alone.
mm.
So that's who we have on our benches right now. Now, that group that's right behind them, they're throwbacks. The sixth, seventh, and eighth graders now act totally different than the 10th, ninth, 10th, 11th, 12th, and the guys that just graduated.
Does that make your job harder knowing knowing that process already when you going into the season because you know that they didn't get this and they missing this?
Oh, it's definitely harder. It's definitely harder because it works. It works both ways. If you put a bunch of guys on a high school team whose parents made sure that during COVID they still got those lessons, you're going to dominate the region. You're going to dominate the area.
Mhm.
Now, if you got a bunch of kids on your team that didn't get that, no fault of their own, then you're going to get dominated. Now, they're still learning the lessons, but they're learning the lessons they should have learned 5 years ago.
Mm, okay.
So you're spending a whole season and it's the first time they've had the emotions of, man, this dude wants the ball more than I want it. Like he literally, now those COVID kids should have gotten that when they were in the fifth grade.
Mhm.
They didn't. So you sputter through eighth grade, ninth grade ball in the Plano area, you sputter through it. And then all of a sudden you find yourself on a 6A stage and you're out there with a bunch of dogs. It is it's more of an eye-opening experience than it ever should have been. That's why you don't see any upsets like you used to. Like when we grew up, guys would knock people off all the time. That's that that's because even the less talented kids, they had the grit, they had the fight. And if you didn't come with your best game, they're going to get you.
Mhm.
But now kids that are are told that they're told in a lot of different ways that they're not as good as other people. They're more accepting of that. And here's how they're told: if you don't get invited to a 17 and under um, program that's ran by a shoe company, you're not that good. So when we were growing up, if someone didn't invite us, we'd be like, bet, okay, don't let me see you.
That's a fact.
Don't
I want
don't
that.
let me see you.
Yeah.
Because it's now at that point, it's my lifelong goal to prove you wrong.
Hmm.
And I'm going to, because I know I can go into the lab and outwork you.
Mm.
But you don't see that now. You don't see kids that are underdogs, like that fire and that passion and getting into the lab and getting into the gym. You don't see them working their way out of it. They're accepting of their fate. They're accepting of their rating. They look on YouTube and go, oh, this guy. So when they see him, they almost, how many high school games have you been to this year where kids just kind of lay down?
Maybe two.
There you go.
And from what I see, and I get on my son about this all the time. Yo, you got too many friends, man. Like you got your homeboy on the other side, and you're like, "That's my homeboy." Homeboy, I'll talk to you when I give you this 30 piece. Then we can have a conversation because it's
Oh yeah,
something to talk about later. I'm
there you
not.
go.
I'm not. We friends when this is over. I'm
There
trying
you
to
go.
murder you right now, and I'm like,
So that attitude, coach, that attitude you have, if you try to bless someone with that attitude that doesn't have it, they don't even know how to interpret the information you're giving them. That information you got is a blessing, turning someone into that type of person who isn't afraid of doing what the expectation says they can't do.
mm,
Giving someone the skill set and the confidence and the belief that they can overcome obstacles that have been put in front of them by other people's intentional defamation of them. Like
agreed.
people are intentionally saying, you're not good enough, you don't belong,
Yep.
and you're blessing them. And this is what I love about you. You're blessing them with the faith, right? The faith, which gives you confidence, which allows you to go into those situations where you're not supposed to succeed and you succeed. That's a blessing. But
I'm
some
a
people,
nature of my environment, coach. I'm a nature of my environment. I grew up
there
in.
you go.
I'm from Brooklyn. We
There you
don't
go.
know. I played against the best point guards, big men. One of the coaches is on here. Shout out to Kenny Kings. He's on here. He's coached the have his team that I played against for all Division One, all of them. Park New York legends. And when I tell you, you had no choice but to show up, you get laughed at in your own neighborhood.
In your own neighborhood. Yeah.
My thing was I wanted to be respected by those guys, one, and my neighborhood.
Yes, sir.
These kids, that's why I'm always on my son. Yo, you gotta have, and he has killer in him. I'm not saying he don't, but there's times where I know, hey, you being too nice, man. I'm watching you. You need to stop. But your homeboy gonna laugh at you later when he hit a three in your face. I'm telling you, you better stop. And then he'll go out there and then he'll start playing. But again, I'm a nature of my environment. Any kid that I've coached, shout out to Howie, I coached the way I played.
Oh, yeah. And that's a blessing, coach.
I'm
That's a blessing.
aggressive. I tell everybody my story, and my story. Listen, I had to go get my GED to play college basketball, junior college. Being perfectly honest, I had to work my butt off to do that. Somebody believed in me, and I did it. And I had a great college career. I'm fine. Played Division II, played JUCO. I'm great. You know what I'm saying? But I enjoyed it, but I had to get that dog in me. And and I tell people all the time, the better competition was in street ball. When I got to college, it was easy.
Easy. Yeah.
It was easy. I don't know
Well,
who that.
that's because you didn't have to have a degree, you didn't have to have a certain GPA, you didn't have to go to a certain school. If you meet me out here on this park, or you meet me over here at this rec center, when you know the dudes are going to be in there,
Hmm?
then you there is no NBA division, NCAA division, uh, tier 1, 2, 3, like they have in these tournaments. No, you show up in the rec, you might be playing against the city legend.
Right?
He
Yes.
might be in there. He might be 35 years old, stepping on your foot, hooking you with his elbow, hitting your arm, and meanwhile talking to you the whole time, taking you out of your game. So these kids they're separated from all that. We have divisions in life now. Like, you don't get a kid growing up playing basketball doesn't get exposed to, like, I knew if I went to Skyland Recreation Center at a certain time on a certain day, I could run into Michael Ray Richardson, Ralph Sampson, uh, uh, all the all the big time players that came out of Denver. They're going to be there, and
Mm.
you cannot escape. So first of all, think about this: you had to intentionally sit up in your bed, make decision that you were going to put your shoes on and have the guts and the nerve to walk up in there. Then once you got in there, you had to convince someone to give you a chance.
No, that's right.
Then once you got on the court, you had to perform or you would never get back on the court again. So
It's
I'm
levels.
saying this. Tell
Levels.
me where that happens now.
They don't. They get their own group of kids and they go somewhere else and play. And
Right.
shout out to my boy Magic, St. John's Rec. He know what the smoke was up there. The smoke up there, I'm talking, and these are just, I'm going to give you a few names. You might not know who they are, but I'm going to tell you. Charles Jones led the nation in scoring 2 years in a row, might just walk in the gym. LIU, Brooklyn. Trevor Diggs, UNLV, might just walk in the gym. That was my workout partner. Jamel Tinsley, Iowa State, Indiana Pacers. Jaquay Walls, Booger Smith, Junie Sanders. These
Oh,
are
you go. Yeah.
legends in New York City who walk into the gym and you bet not waste their time because
Yes,
they're
sir.
trying to kill you
Yes, sir.
or they're
Yes, sir.
kicking you off the court. One or the other. You get kicked
And
off the court.
and you know what? If you showed promise and you brought it, they take the time to teach you some things too. And
Agreed.
that's another part that we're missing here. Um, you know, before I got on the show, I was just thinking to myself that um, growing up, and I agree with you that people are too nice, but there's also too much talking.
Mm,
Like we didn't have podcasts, we didn't have the ability to make our own TikTok. We didn't have the ability to get on a machine where you can pretend that, like Xbox or something. We couldn't do that where you could pretend that you were playing and you were somebody that you weren't.
oh no. Yeah.
Now think about that. Think
Virtual
about that.
thing. Virtual
If
world.
Yeah,
AI.
the virtual world has taken a lot from the reality world because these kids can mentally convince themselves that there's something that they're not.
Agreed.
So what replaced you and I staying out, like begging your mom and dad to put up a hoop, or finding a hoop. Can you remember how hard it was just to find a hoop?
But we also walked too. We didn't drive.
Oh, bruh, come on, come on,
There was
come
no,
on.
can you drop me off? Now you better walk those 15, 20 blocks.
That's right. Like if you really want to play, you're gonna walk.
And we
And
walked
and
everywhere.
and if you got a bike, oh, that was everything.
Oh man, you was the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If you
you.
got a bike, I mean, kids don't even ride bikes anymore.
They look at him.
They don't ride bikes. I rode my bike everywhere.
Oh man, whenever I
Man,
had a bike, I was
you
able to
could
go.
see me. I'd be down at I'd be at Skyland. I'd be at Martin Luther King. I'd be down on the 5 Points playing out there. I'd be on the north side. I'd be at DU, bro. I would be everywhere. And you know what? My boys were with me too.
And guess what? You knew how to fix a flat tire.
Oh yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You kept some
But if you
patches and you kept whatever you need to get it just
That's
in
right.
case you got flat.
Yes, yes, sir. If you wanted to hoop and you wanted to hoop against the best, you had to get there.
No, no, definitely.
You had to get there, man. And so again, this blessing that I'm talking about is the fact that you have always done a great job of getting these kids to believe what you say, not just know what you're saying or listen, but believe it. And that's where in today's world, that's where the coaching is at its premium, man.
Mm.
You've got to get these parents who think they know everything, and parents who don't really want their kids to be exposed to the point that it hurts their feelings enough for them to improve. Right? You got to get that little sting sometime,
Mhm.
which allows you to improve. Because if you're always happy, how hard are you really working?
That's true.
No, your hardest working days came out of some of the worst butt kickings you got.
Hmm.
Oh, I'm not going to let that happen again. That's not happening again. You ain't beating me like that again. Or heartbreak. I'm never going to be in that position again where where I can't finish and you finish before me. So those heartbreaks are the very things that our parents now, they think they're protecting their kids from it, but it's actually making them softer and softer and softer.
I agree with you. Listen, you said the heartbreaks, something that's not going to happen again. Let me tell you something. I'm still looking for the dude who scored 60 on me in junior in Division Two. I will never forget. Look, I know his name, Gary Bryant.
If you see him on the street, you're gonna jump on him.
It might be some smoke, man. It might be some smoke, man. It might be some different type of smoke, man. Because I
He
was
put
so hurt.
60 on you.
Listen, that dude. Listen, and no 3 pointers.
Oh,
I would never forget that game. It was CW Post. He played for CW Post. And I came off every screen possible. But by the time I got to that third screen,
gone.
I was
He had
done.
let it go.
It was gone. And I'm
So
on it. And I'm
he had a mid-range game that was
out of this
funky.
world. Gary
Yeah,
Bryant. Gary Bryant out of this world. He could hit anything, anywhere. And when he
yeah.
was off, he was off. But he was on. It was a home game. He was on. And at the end of that game, I'll never forget. I cried. That hurt my feelings so bad because I was supposed to be the defensive guy, and I'm letting this guy get off, and he killed us by himself. I had to put ice packs on my shoulders. That's how many screams I came off.
Bro. So that moment, our kids right now don't have them. Our kids don't have that moment, and I need them to have that moment, which propels them through through anything that they won't be denied. Like that moment for you, it sticks with you today.
Oh my God, I'll never forget it. I mean, how you
So
can
we
forget?
can't cheat our kids from the moments.
Yeah, but
We
you got to
can't cheat them.
also remember too. I know you don't go to a lot of the games. AAU, everybody feels like they got to play on the top team to be recognized. And what I understand is a lot of these parents think because you're losing doesn't mean your kids are getting better. If you know what I'm saying, they think because if I'm losing, oh, we lost by 15, we lost by 20. They're not looking at how we lost.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh
Oh, this
yeah.
team is good, they losing. But now you go to the winning team and you ain't playing.
You ain't playing.
So you're still losing.
But that's a bigger loss.
It's even worse. It's even
It's a,
crucial.
that's the
You
worst
know?
loss you can take. The worst loss you can take is spend time and no improvement because you cannot get that time back.
That's right.
You can't get it back.
That's right. Let me ask you a process that I always wanted to know. You're a varsity coach. You have a system of middle schools, junior high schools. How do you start recruiting to get these young men prepared for you by the time they come to you? Like, what is your process?
Uh, it's kind of weird in high school. It's getting more streamlined, and some of the really good programs
Mhm.
have uh, a really nice downlines, we call them, set up, and you'll find those in more established in like a one school town.
Okay.
Like the one school towns have that on lock. Uh, One district, one high school, everything feeds to that school. It's easier to streamline and downline it to
Okay.
where your your drills, the basics of your offense, the basics of your defense are taught all the way down to the elementary school.
Hmm.
Okay. You have a problem when you have multi-school districts like we do, because at that point, um, in an effort to be fair, in an effort to be equal, in an effort for one school not to do something that another school doesn't get to do, blah blah blah, for whatever reason, it doesn't really matter. Instead of you pressing forward, there's a lot more rules of what you can't do
Right.
in order so that guys aren't trying to go to this school because the downline is more prevalent, it's more established, it's apparent, it's working,
Hmm.
and it makes sense in a lot of ways because when leadership changes, you lose your downline,
Hmm.
and you might not ever recover it if there's aren't rules in place so that guys can't really confiscate your whole downline, personnel. You know what I mean? So one horse towns, when the leadership changes, the downline stays.
Hmm.
In multiple schools, like you're in this district or this district, you got to have rules in place so that the new guy coming in isn't basically raped of his program.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So I do all I can to touch down there and to communicate and to make sure that my philosophy and my culture, right,
Mm.
the culture of your program is known and pushed as far down as you can get it.
Okay.
Um, and 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 unfortunately, when you have new schools going up, um, it's hard to keep good coaches in a downline.
Okay.
Like for instance, I'll tell you right now, if a guy like you came in as my eighth grade coach, you'd be there 6 months and somebody would come get you. So for 6 months, I'd have a great eighth grade coach. I'd probably have the best eighth grade coach in the state. But what that means is you're not going to be there that long. You're going to be, because there's so many schools coming
Yeah,
up,
I see what you're saying. Okay.
like they're looking at you and they're going, is that Al? You know what I mean? You stick out like a sore thumb.
Hmm.
So the downlines get really, really hurt by the expansion that's going on because you can't keep good coaches down there.
Ah, okay.
You
Yeah.
see what I mean? You just can't,
Yeah.
you can't keep quality coaches in Plano when you have what, 13 Frisco schools, you have 4 Prosper schools, you have Princeton, you have Anna, you have Sherman, you have Melissa, you have Salina, and I guarantee you, you go to any of these staffs, they came from Plano. A lot of them, a lot of just, I mean, you know, plenty of them,
Yeah. Yeah.
plenty of them. So how, you know, you can't keep a good coach. So it's just something that is going to happen, especially with the expansion north, east, west, all these new schools, all these opportunities coming up. It's hard to keep a downline that, you know, that'll help you, because, you know, and then too, those principals have to have the best quality teacher they can get
Yes.
for that slot. And so now you got a principal that's recruiting too. I mean, because the principal wants their English department, their math department, their history department, they want those departments to be as strong as possible. So they're saying, hey, this is a really, really good science teacher.
Hmm.
You can teach him how to coach basketball. You and I both know that that's not true, but
Right.
in their mind, it's a win because they've just boosted and supported. I mean, it's a competition everywhere. It's a competition that runs so deep. But you got to admire those principles because you have to keep those kids coming through their learning at
Hmm.
a rate and a standard that they're supposed to be learning at too.
Right.
You got to recruit quality teachers. So sometimes the athletic piece of it is second. And
Hmm.
so now that hurts my downline.
Hmm. Yeah.
So now a guy like you has a kid that's in my downline, and I got a science teacher coaching basketball for the first time, and you done spent the last 6 years in AAU and coaching your kid up. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
That that's the problem. But I don't it's unavoidable. It's unavoidable. You're going to have that problem, and the only thing you can do is what we do. We just try to coach our coaches as much as we can.
Right. I have somebody who asked a question, and you can answer this. Can a school recruit a coach from outside the state?
Absolutely,
Hmm.
absolutely. The guy has to be certified. You have
Okay.
you have to have the credentials. But yeah, absolutely. The certification process here in Texas is well documented on the internet. They have a lot of programs that allow a guy or a young lady to come in and not be certified initially, go through what's called a probation period, where if they have experience and certifications in another state, that will give you time to get in the door and then get your qualification per Texas regulations.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
so they got great programs, man. They got great programs to help those specific types of instances where a person, has been a teacher otherwise, so you don't want to lose that person. So they give you what's like a probationary period to get that certification under Texas laws and regulations, but you can still get hired at a certain level. Um, so they're smart about it. Yeah, you coming in from out of state, sir, whoever you are, ma'am. Yes, you just got to go talk to that principal. It's all based on what your qualifications are, what you bring to the table, what they need. You know, all those things.
How do you feel about AAU coaches in your program? I've had the pleasure, and I want to say the pleasure, but I've tried, and like I said to you, you the only one who actually invited me in the locker room, the home, and not that I was recruiting anybody, but just wanted to hear what was going on. And I tried this a long time ago. This is when you was at McKinney. Tried to do this at Plano East, and I wanted to create a program where we take your seventh and eighth graders and get them ready for you by the time they get to ninth grade. Whatever you're teaching, your plays, your out of bounds plays, whatever it is, we want to make sure they're ready for you when you get them. And of course, that didn't work out. Me and Carl actually was going to do this. We had a whole thing put together. We had it together. We was ready to rock and roll. And Plano East turned us down, but eventually gave it over to Martin Salinas, who was at Panther Pack coach, which is fine.
Well, I don't really know anything about that kind of stuff because I don't really get involved with that. But what I will tell you is this: there are rules set up within the UIL where um, um, they prevent you from doing that. In other words, you're not supposed to have more than three guys from your school playing on a team.
Mm,
Yeah, so a lot of those things are inherently uh, you're deterred from doing that because of they don't want the whole thing behind UIL rules and regulations is to prevent people from, say, putting together an AAU team, and then those guys are actually practicing and they're playing outside of the school year. And it's against the rules. I mean, you're only supposed to have so many time working out, so many time doing strength and conditioning during so much time a week,
mm,
so many players per team. All that kind of stuff is spelled out specifically as far as the UIL goes, and it's well documented. You just can look it up, and it'll tell you what those rules are there. But more realistically, I don't push any AAU affiliation whatsoever
mm,
personally, just because you can, as a high school coach, you can say you're not showing favoritism, but it's going to come out that way. Now, let me give you an example. If I push kid A to um, the Nike circuit and I push kid B to PSA team, now I'm a bad person. You see what I'm saying? I mean, there's even though even though the reality of the situation is that that's probably how it stacks up and the skill and the IQ, that's how it should have gone. But the
mm,
fact that I supported that or I recommended it or I brought somebody in, you lose your ability to be impartial,
mm,
I feel. And so that's why it's not that I don't want to go to the AAU games. It's not that I don't want to support any AAU program. It's not that I don't believe that AAU can be beneficial. It's
mm,
just that I believe um, in a higher level of administrating a program and having a culture. I want to have the most. Um, I want the opportunity to be equal for everyone. In
mm,
other words, the kid that that played 9B works his tail off in the summer of his sophomore year and comes back, I don't want to be swayed or influenced in any way that this guy over here played with so and so and so and so. No, 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 no. When you come in my gym, I see what I see, and that's what my decision is based on.
Okay.
I'm not going to give you credit for playing over there, and I'm not going to dock you for playing over there, because you might have went into the lab and improved.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to penalize a kid that's not on a circuit team, but has done the work and has improved. You're starting, buddy.
Right. Mm-hmm.
If you're the man and you're taking this kid out, I'm not going to be influenced by, an organization.
Right.
No, I want kids knowing that if they go in the lab and they get the work done and they come back better, then you get rewarded for that. I think every kid deserves that. I mean, people make changes and they do it in different ways. Not everybody has the opportunity to go play for these circuit teams.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean that you didn't make the most improvement.
Right.
So, I mean, I have a fresh pair of eyes. I have a fresh, I don't get tempted into recruiting. Who comes to my gym, I coach them. I coach them up. And, we've been able to be successful and hold our own. I mean, this year we weren't very good. We had a lot of young guys, but there's no excuse for that. You have your good years and you have your bad years. But I'm not going to also, as a person, I like being able to look in the mirror and see a guy that does the best of what he can with what he has versus, I'm not going to go over recruit anybody. I'm going to make the players I got better.
Right. Definitely.
And we're going to go compete.
Do you, as a varsity coach, if you had a kid that played football and he's playing basketball, how do you treat that kid?
Man, I love that. My son, who went to Plano Senior High School and was on a state championship team, he was an excellent football player. His sophomore through senior year, played football all 3 years, played basketball all 3 years. I think the football kids are tougher kids. Now, you and I both know that skill development has gotten to the point that if you're not in the gym all the time, you can suffer from just from a mere time aspect that you're not given to the game. But if you want it, you'll get in there on Saturdays and Sundays. If you practice football in the morning, you'll shoot in the evenings. If you practice football in the evenings, you'll get up in the morning and work your game. So I don't. I love it. I want football players. I mean, I think they're tougher kids. They're not afraid of contact. They're not afraid of getting bumped, getting moved off their spot. They're not afraid of any of the, I call them the old man tricks where you hip check a kid, you hook. I mean, they're not, you don't see a football kid looking for a foul. You see a football kid trying to give a foul.
Oh yeah, you're gonna lay something out.
Yeah. And so I think your practices are better because of the physicality and the mentality. Your whole team concept is better because a cat that comes from football isn't all ate up in me. Like in football, you could never touch the ball. You could, if you play corner, which is the spot. I mean, it's high profile. you might not never score in 4 years.
Okay. You might not throw to your side at all. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. So they have a different mentality when it comes to team. You know, they know they understand. Football players understand that it takes a lot of different working parts to have a successful program. Like, think of those linemen. They never get to run the ball. They never get to, but they know that their role is pivotal. So when you bring that to the basketball, now you have a bunch of guys that are more willing to be part of a team versus a guys on the team trying to use that platform for their own personal uh, exaltation, for their own personal benefit.
Right.
They're not thinking about winning, and they're not thinking about sacrifice. They're not think. It's more natural in basketball to be a lone wolf, where when them guys come from football, they're going to make those lone wolves understand that, yeah, your job is to score maybe, but my job is to defend over here, and it's just as important as your job. You can't tell a cornerback that ain't important. Defense isn't important. You can't tell a defensive end that comes to the basketball team that rebounding, blocking out, controlling the paint isn't important.
Mm-hmm.
He gets it. Whereas, some guys, they think they don't need to do none of that. They don't need to rotate. They don't need to block out. They don't need to run the floor. They just need to wait for them to get that ball and then go one-on-one.
Yeah.
Everything else is not important.
That's crazy.
So that's what I love about the football players. I don't, and I came from a high school, bro, where I did 3 sports. I played, well, I did 2 because I messed my knee up after my 9th grade year and couldn't play football anymore. But I played basketball, ran track. Guys that I played with did 3 sports: football, basketball, track, football, basketball, baseball. I mean, that's just the way it was. I mean, we were, the mentality was different.
Definitely different. Definitely different.
Yeah.
I want to play this game called Coach's Corner. I want you to build the perfect player. How would you build it?
Wow.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. You wasn't expecting that one.
Well, man, I'd have to start with I got to start with the leadership piece, man. It's the military in me, and it's the and what I mean by that, you don't got to be a rah guy, but you have to. The entering argument is that you have to hold yourself accountable. Be responsible yourself, and then hold other people accountable.
Agreed.
And that has to be a vicious cycle of you being a responsible person and then holding the other guys in your team accountable. I'd like the guy to be right around, anywhere between 6'4" and 6'6". It doesn't really have to be that, but I found that those guys can guard guards and they can guard bigs, and they can have a motor, and they can play multiple positions.
Right.
And then I like a guy that, he's not a reactive player. He's a proactive player in that he pretty much already knows what you're going to do before you do it. He knows the flow of the game. He knows how to get other people involved early so that he can take over later. He knows how to get the most out of his teammates. And by doing that, he knows his teammates. He knows what his teammates can do and what they can't do. So he's not going to throw a guy a ball, say at half court, because he already knows a guy can't dribble. You have to dribble a couple more times for him to cover that distance on the dead run, and then give it to him once he breaks the free throw line. So maybe he only has to put it on the floor 1 or 2 times. I love guys like that understand who they're playing with, and
Right.
don't throw a pass to somebody just because they're open when they know doggone well that kid can't do nothing with that pass.
Mhm.
In that situation, he hasn't proven in practice or any game that he can make a play or do the right thing where you throwing him the ball. So really he's thinking for everybody else.
Okay.
And so that way you get the best out of your teammates versus putting them in situations, throwing them the ball because they're open. They don't make the play, and so you go like this. You look up in the stands like at your dad and go, I threw him, Dad, I threw him the ball. Well, you know darn well that kid had no business getting the ball there. And then meanwhile, the little shooter that comes off the screen, you never give it to him on time. So he can jump up and do what he can do.
Mhm.
You always give it to him a step late or a second late. So now when he catches it, guys up in his chest, he has to put it on the floor and it's a turnover. I mean, I love those kind of guys. And then, and I'm probably talking about LeBron James or Kobe right now, but then at the end of it, he knows when he has to make a play, and he makes it. It doesn't. It could be a rebound. It could be a block shot. It could be a pass, an assist. It could be a tough bucket. It could be a drive, draw foul, get to the free throw line. But knowing when you have to take over versus you taking over all the time, and then when you should take over, you you divert to someone else.
Mhm.
You know, those type of games I'm not down with. I don't think that that's a perfect player. And I've seen a bunch of kids this year that have all that. They just know how to play, man. They know how to play, and they got the toughness and the resolve and the leadership to back it up. So, man, that was a good question.
Yeah, I know you figured you wanted to build a player, so I need to know how you would want your perfect player to be. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
that was a great question. That was a great question, and bro, I don't mean to cut you off, but I got something I got to do here. How long does your podcast run?
No, that's it. We ready? We did an
Oh,
hour.
okay.
This is
Okay.
A60. We good. Anything
We've
else
been
you
on
want
here
to?
an hour?
Been on an hour and 12 minutes.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, that's what okay.
We can always come back and do part two. We
Yeah,
good.
yeah. And you know, man, this was fun for me. But I always love talking basketball to you, man.
Oh, definitely.
These people don't know that you and I have done probably 15, 20 podcasts in my living room,
Just sit
right?
down.
In my kitchen. So yeah, so
So this
I
is easy. That's why I said this was easy.
yeah, yeah. You and I do podcasts all the time, man. That's funny.
Well, I appreciate you, my brother, for always showing me support and showing me love. Thank you for doing this, man.
Oh
I know you
man, this was a
do a lot,
blast.
but thank you, man. I really appreciate it.
This was a blast, man. Thank you for allowing me to do it. I mean, I hope you know, um, I was able to help somebody out there, and I really do hope that the parents and the kids just understand that coaches want the same thing for them that they want.
Mhm.
When it all comes down to it, we all want the same thing, and we want the kid to be successful. We want the best version of that kid to come out. We want that kid to be successful and reach their goals.
Mhm.
Their goals, not our goals. It's the goal that they walk in the door and they tell you, they say, Al, I want to do this. You say, bet. Well, these are the steps that you got to do to get to this goal that you just told me you want. And oh, by the way, when you're not on that path, I'm going to let you know.
That's right.
Because you came and asked me and told me what you want. So now I have to hold you accountable.
Definitely.
I'm going to be responsible enough to hold you accountable to meet the goals that you set for yourself. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm a bully. That doesn't mean I don't like your kid. That doesn't mean I'm demeaning them. That doesn't mean, but you can't come in my gym and say you want one thing, but your actions, your body language, your verbiage, everything about you is pointing in another direction. Like the goal to get to the goal is over here,
That's right.
but everything you're doing is going away from the goal. Well, I'm going to tell you about that.
Definitely.
And not only am I going to tell you, but I'm going to help you get turned around, get redirected, and to take the next step toward your goal. And that's what you're going to do. And that's what you do every day. But you know, and I know that that's a hard thing to do when someone's feelings get hurt.
All the time.
And that's where we lose. We lose our process of getting to our goal when everything doesn't go right for us and we feel bad.
Mm-hmm.
Now the parents think they got to jump in and blame somebody. Now the kid thinks he has to run and make up a story why he feels bad. Now, now all of a sudden, you're so far off and distracted from reaching the goal. You're so far off topic that you're a lost cause.
Yep.
And these days, you ain't got much time, baby. Because
Not
like I said, that NIL has pushed everything down.
mm-hmm.
You got to be something that I don't know if these kids really mature wise are ready to be that at that age. But if you're going to get paid to play, you better be that.
Yeah, I agree. All right, man. I ain't gonna keep it too much longer, man.
Man, you're the best, man.
I
You're the
appreciate
best, coach.
you. You're the best, brother.
I'll holler at you.
We'll talk later.
Yes, sir. Thank you very
All right.
much. Take care.
Thank
Bye.
you.
You bet.
Oh man, that was good. All right, friends and family, thank you for tuning in. I will repost this um, interview with Dean, Coach Dean. Always give great insight, man. Like you said, we don't have 20 podcasts sitting on this couch just having conversation, and I'm glad that he was able to join in with me. It gives some insight from a varsity perspective, Coach. I'm going to reach out to a couple of more of my coaches and get them on and see how they feel because everybody's different. Everybody coach differently. Everybody think differently. But I still want to get them on the same page, and I want to get a couple of my AAU buddies on here and see what they think and how they feel. And we will do part two. So thank you to everybody that tuned in tonight. Appreciate the questions. I hope everybody got the information they needed. I will repost. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Chopping It Up with A60. Chopping It Up with A60. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you like this interview, please like and share on my Facebook page. Other than that, everybody continue to have a great week. And I'll talk to you later. Peace. A60 is out.